Just to our speaker tonight. Dave W. is gracious enough to come up here and give us a presentation on the doctor's opinion. It's like the Twilight Zone. For the next hour, he will be commandeering this meeting and sharing some of his experience with us. Please help us welcome Dave.
Thanks, Ron. Hi, everybody. My name is Dave W. Dave Weinerman. I am an alcoholic. Yay. And my home group is the Precisely How group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We meet on Wednesday nights in Bristol Borough. We're a hour speaker meeting. I think like some of you guys do here on Saturday night. And if you're ever in the area, please stop by and join us. Ron, thank you for the invitation. It's always it is an honor and a privilege to come out and do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous. And tonight I've been tasked with the doctor's opinion. And I was wondering, where do you get those pictures that you put up on those things? Hey, how did you get my prom picture? Actually, I think it was the picture right before I went into my last detox. Okay. Everybody can hear me okay? All right, so the doctor's opinion states, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. They added this to the book because they felt it was very important, as I said, the medical estimate that a medical professional write what they think about this program. Dr. Silkworth, William Duncan Silkworth, happened to be the doctor that had attended to Bill Wilson on several occasions. Convincing testimony must surely come from the medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. And I always take pause there just for a second to say that, it's because it's easy sometimes we just read over and it's just words, And I think it's important to understand they didn't get a podiatrist to write this opinion. I mean, it's stated here clearly that he was the chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction. He basically dedicated his life to working with alcoholics. So his opinion is probably one of the better opinions they could have asked for. To whom it may concern, he writes, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was the type of alcoholic I had come to regard as hopeless. And again, I always stop there because there's that word hopeless. You'll find throughout this book that the chronic alcoholic is described, and this condition is described over and over again as a hopeless condition, which is not, I would say, probably not good news for most of us. And prior to Bill Wilson having his experience in developing what would become our 12 steps, there was no hope for the alcoholic. I mean, there was nothing available for us. I mean, they put us in insane asylums. They cut out lobotomies. They cut out pieces of our brain. They tortured us. They just did horrific, inhumane things that really didn't help us get well. And there was no other alternative. In late 1934, I attended a patient, already read that. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced, at least commenced means begin. I went by that many times thinking, commenced, it just never occurred to me, especially because I thought of it in the fear prayer, Lord God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you would have me be. And it says, we immediately commence to outgrow fear. We begin to outgrow fear. We don't say that prayer, bang, fear goes away. It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process of trust. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conception to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. Immediately, Bill Wilson, when he had his experience, and it starts here, right here, emphasizing the importance of passing it on. If you want to keep it, you have to pass it on. I mean, we're not even into the first chapter of the book, and it's already talking about how important he felt it was that he impressed upon others that they must do likewise. You must share your experience. You must pass this on to others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others, the first 100 alcoholics, others have appeared to have recovered. And again, it's in certain areas of the debate that, we don't recover. I don't know about your book, but my book says that I recover many times throughout. I personally know scores of cases who are of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. It's where the page turned into there actually being a solution for alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves, and that's a pretty strong recommendation coming from a doctor who has spent his life specializing in the treatment of alcoholics. Very truly yours, William D. Silkworth. The physician who, at our request, gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms that we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent, with some of us. But we are sure our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. How many times, and the thing that comes to mind is, my first career I was in for 18 years. My boss's daughter was getting married. It was a big to-do, and my drinking had been a problem for a long time. It was out of control. I didn't know that. I didn't necessarily realize that, but I remember thinking, I'm going to this wedding, and this is a really, really important event for me to make sure I control myself. And I swore to my wife, I swore to myself, I said it over and over, I have to make sure I am on my best behavior at this occasion. And the booze cart starts coming around, and I have my first Tanqueray on the rocks, and I think, okay, I'm just going to leave it there. And before dinner, once again, my wife was escorting me out of there. I had made a fool of myself. I don't know what I had said to anybody. I remember having to go into the office the next on Monday after the wedding, and sheepishly, you go in, and it was like I gave that look to my boss. I was like looking at him to see how he would look at me, because I wanted to see how bad was it, and sort of sheepishly saying, oh yeah, I had a really good time, probably too good of a time. But the fact is that I don't know. I didn't know why. I woke up that next day. It was like, why do I do this? Why does this happen to me? What's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And I had asked myself that question 1,000 times before, and would ask myself that question 1,000 times after that. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may, of course, mean little. But as ex-problem drinkers, we can say this explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. I came into AA after 3 or 4 rehabs over a 4-year period of really crashing and burning it, I moved into a recovery house. I was in that recovery house for several weeks, and I was supposed to get a sponsor, and I was outside of a meeting, and I remember saying to a couple of guys I was with, I really need to get a sponsor. And this young man overheard me saying that. And he knew some of the people that I was talking to, and he it was like he had springs in his shoes. He popped up into my face, and he had this big smile on his face. And he was like 6'1", and he was bouncing on his shoes, and he's like, "I'll sponsor you." And I was I remember looking him up and down, and I swear I thank God sometimes that I was so naive about this whole thing, because I really didn't. I mean, even though I had been through several rehabs, I hadn't really. I dabbled in AA, I dabbled in some other things, but I never thought that was for me. And this time I'd really, it was really the end. And so I looked this kid up and down, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm old enough to be his father. And I'm thinking to myself, I could have the upper hand on you like this. I think a sponsor is somebody that bosses you around, tells you what to do, runs your life. I'm like, this is perfect. So I said, sure, no problem. And a day later I go over to his house as he asked me to. And he sits down and he starts talking to me about how he felt growing up. He started talking to me about how uncomfortable he was. He started talking to me about how he drank and what happened to him when he drank. And in that 40-minute conversation, he went from the kid I was going to have the upper hand on to somebody that I was, I could see there was something different in him. You could see the book described, those bright eyes and the clear skin. It was the shiny look. I mean, he had that, and it was attractive. And we opened up this book, and we started reading this, and I remember getting to this line, and because there had been so many times in my life, and I'll tell you some more of the stories as we go along, that like that wedding, and like so many other of them I called the incidents. It was when I didn't set out for that to happen. It was why? What's wrong with me? And about 3 weeks prior to that, I had been in my car. I went off in my car, put a hose in the car to try to kill myself. And as I did that, I just cried out to God, what's wrong with me? And I put the hose in, and it was getting dark. I fell asleep, and I woke up. The sun was up. The car was off. There should have been no reason. And 3 weeks later, I'm sitting down with this young man, and we're reading this book, and we start talking about this allergy, and we get to this line, and it explains many things for which we otherwise could not account. And it was right there that I was hooked, as he explained to me that I have an allergy. I have something that sets me apart from other people. An allergy is an abnormal reaction to something. You don't react the way other people do. I never knew that. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know why. And he explained that there was something with us in this disease of alcoholism, that when I take a drink, the allergic reaction I break out to, which the book will talk about as we go on, is the phenomenon of craving. And that's why when I go to that wedding, swearing to myself that I'm not going to overdo it this time, that's why when I was a senior in high school, and my friends would go home at midnight because they had a curfew. I would be banging on the door at the place where I worked, at the restaurant I used to work at, because the people would be in there after hours, drinking, the staff, and I wanted to get in, and I was already so wasted they wouldn't let me in, and I banged so long that the guy stuck my check through the door and sent me on my way, and I would drive to a friend's house to try to get somebody up, and hit a telephone pole and just keep driving another 5 miles with the car wrecked, and wake up the next day and be like, why do I keep going? I don't get it. And this explained many things for which I otherwise could not account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as the altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. Detox, rehab, I call this step zero. I mean, you have to clear yourself of it first to be able to move on with the program. More often than not, it is imperative, more important than anything else, that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. The doctor writes, the subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. paramount importance, above anything else. It's more important than anything else to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. There was, therefore, a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology, a vital spiritual experience, a complete psychic change, was of urgent importance to the alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. And what an amazing moment this was, and what this statement says. I mean, first of all, it's a statement of extreme humility. This is a man who is a scientist, a doctor, who spent his life trying to fix these people, and he's admitting here that I can't, that the scientific community can't, perhaps we lack in the ability to do this. It needs something beyond, something outside of the knowledge of science, of what we have to offer. You know, Bill Wilson had his white light experience in Towns Hospital where Dr. Silkworth was. And after that white light experience, he called out, he saw Dr. Silkworth, and he said to Dr. Silkworth, he's like, I don't know what happened. Something happened, and I feel different. I'm not sure. What do you think? What should you tell me? And that was a moment. We talk about it as sometimes referred to as seconds and inches, but there were so many moments that had to, I believe, were divine moments throughout the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, that if had something happened just a little bit different, we might not be sitting here today. And Dr. Silkworth said to Bill, he said, I don't know what happened to you, but whatever it is, you better hang on to it. You know, and that again was a moment of humility. Dr. Silkworth could have very easily, because I'm sure he'd seen it 100, if not 1,000 times, people going through the delirium tremens, and so he could have said to Bill, he said, you know what, Bill, you're probably just hallucinating from the delirium tremens. Don't worry about it. And we wouldn't be here today. It would have changed the course of our history. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. There we go again. These are time frame references. I mean, you can say that they're maybe reading between the lines, but I don't think so. I mean, so put this into application at once, which it talked about before, where he immediately tried to start carrying this message, trying to pass it on to other people. It was vital to Bill Wilson staying sober, which was vital to Bill Wilson meeting Dr. Bob, which was vital to us being here today. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving, we consented. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. And I think as the decades have gone by, that amazing has continued to happen. I know so many people, and I can tell you, including myself, that this program and just following these simple instructions have done amazing things, in my life. The unselfishness, altruistic movement of these men, as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves, and still more, in the power. The lack of power is our dilemma. Without a power, there is no hope. The power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gate of death. It's the power that allows that psychic change to happen. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit, step 0. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. And that may be, and I think what I'm saying is that is the single qualification for alcoholism, is this phenomenon of craving and this allergic reaction. I mean, I do believe it says in the beginning of We Agnostics, something to the effect that if when you want to stop drinking, you find you can't stop entirely, or when you take a drink, you find you have no control over the amount you take, you're probably suffering from alcoholism, which requires a spiritual experience. It's not both, it's and or. And this chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinkers. I had my first drink at about 12 years old. Me and a buddy were coming home from school, and it's amazing because two very different things happened that day. We decided we were going to get drunk, and we sit down in front of his dad's liquor cabinet, and I take a swig. He takes a swig. I take a swig. He takes a swig. After a few of those, my buddy says, I'm going to go in the kitchen. I'm going to make a snack. Now he left. And in the time, 10 minutes it took him to make that snack, I went through every one of those single bottles 2 more times. I immediately was drinking to overcome a craving beyond my control. I had no idea, and I was drinking to overcome some other things too. But it was that craving that the minute I started, it produced something that I needed to keep going. I couldn't stop. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit and found that they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up on them, and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. Now, you can definitely say that this might be reading between the lines, but I read this: these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. In that form, they may have been talking about beer, wine, liquor, cider, that type of thing. But I believe it for the alcoholic, any form at all, certainly would include any type of drug substance. And I also believe for somebody who's been in sobriety, who has been sober or not drinking for a while, we go on binges of spending money, we go on binges of gambling, we go on binges of workaholicness, we go on binges of you name it. And to me, these are things that would fall into that category of any form at all. Because if I fall into those traps of those things, I'm doing those because they're producing some sort of effect in me that's fixing something that I need truly a real power to fix, and those aren't the power. And those things, as everything else, will start to become discontented, and they will wear off, and I will move on to the next thing. And if I don't correct that, it will bring me back to a drink. So you can take any form at all, however you want. That's how I take any form at all. And once having formed that